All right, and here's for part 2 of this week's episodes. Everything's getting real long. Everything drags out. This one was not going to be nearly as long as the first one, but I just couldn't have that last episode go any longer. We had to split it. It was already longer than I like them to be, and I already cut a bunch of sections out of it. So anyway, we're going to be doing the disc brake conversion on the back. We're using e-brake calipers, all from RuffStuff. So we're going to go through the hubs and everything and get those all cleaned up and put those back on. I'll show you how to do all that. And then we'll do the disc brake swap, which really it's really easy. It wasn't hard at all. So painting it takes the most time. In reality, you technically wouldn't have to actually do that. So if you weren't doing that, you could probably get this done before lunch easily if you were doing brakes. There is a little bit of stuff to do if you're just doing it just on your daily or on a weekend rig. The e-brake, I don't get too far into the e-brake. That's going to be later down the road. I believe all your hardware and stuff from the drum brakes will work, but I think you're going to have to move some stuff because the cables kind of have to go a little farther to make it to the caliper than they would in the drum brake. Anyway, check it out. You'll get to see the wheels and tires in the car. You can see them right there, kind of a sneak peek. But anyway, stay tuned and check it out. It should be a short one. We're going to take this. We have to take this off. It's just on there temporarily. The caliper bracket goes back here. It can basically be in 2 positions, but we're going to have to position it in a way that our e-brake cable will work. That's going to be really what sets us to in the direction that we're sitting. Oh man, where I'm going to have to jock this thing up. I'm using one of my holes with my chain. But anyway, so I wire wheeled this while it was on there so it would spin while I wire wheeled it. I always laugh at these things, but they're crude. I think they cast these things in like a flower shape, so there's a whole bunch of them. You know, just in a pattern in a circle, and then they feed the iron down the center, and it feeds them all, and then they just bust them off, and they just leave it. So sometimes these are broke way down into here, and yeah, they're pretty gnarly. I'm surprised you don't get vibrations from it because it's just such a different thickness. I mean, you know, I know if you stuck this thing on a balancer, it would be way off because there's a huge chunk right here, and there's not a chunk anywhere else. So it's obviously would be out of balance. Anyway, ramble. We're going to clean it all up. You don't pack these bearings, and someone obviously did on this one. That's why it's packed full of grease out here. It made a little science experiment of gear oil and grease going on inside there. So we'll just put a really light coat of grease on it just so that as we spin it now, or after we put it back together, we're not running dry bearings. But we're just light enough to where it's lubricating for now. We're not actually going to drive the car on it that way. But when there's gear oil in it, that'll all be under gear oil. So those bearings will have plenty of oil that way. So hopefully they didn't screw up those bearings by putting the grease in them. We'll inspect them all, but when we clean them all up, then I'm going to paint it. I'm going to paint the rotor just like I did the front. Then it's the exact same setup as the front. The rotor goes on the back. The studs hold it onto the hub. Okay, so I'm looking at these calipers and brackets. Pop, here I am. And so I assume it comes offset in this way. I'm assuming that. We may have to take it all apart again if I'm wrong. So either we can be there or we can be there. So if I hold up this caliper, they're both opposite. They're mirror images of each other. So what happens is your cable goes in here and it clips just like it would be into the drum. Maybe that cable would even work. We'll find out. But it goes in there, you pop it out this side, and you just hook it on there. So then when you pull your cable, it pulls that lever that way, like that. So that spring isn't always like that, so it'll stay. So, but anyway, so if that's the case, obviously the piston's on that side. If it clips in there, and we put this here, the cable would have to run underneath the axle and up the line. And if we had it here, the cable would be going this way and it would just have to go farther. So that doesn't really work. So, and when we have it with it here, the bleeder is at the top, which is where it's supposed to be, and then the line's at the bottom, which is where it's supposed to be. If we hold up the mirror image one, it would put e-brake cable just perfectly to go up the control arm, but then our bleeder's at the bottom and our brake line's at the top, and that's not really what you want. We could do it if it were so much better that the e-brake being up here would work better. We could make that work. I mean, we could bleed it just by loosening that line instead of loosening the bleeder. But I think going under the axle won't be such a bad thing. I don't like the idea of potentially dragging that thing on the ground. But I think if we do the loop inside the wheel and then up, it probably wouldn't be too bad that the cable was underneath the axle. Yeah, again, I don't really like that idea, but I think that's what we have to do. So that puts our lines at the right spot, and then our cable is just going to have to go that way. I don't think I showed you the other cable. If this were on the other side, the bleeder would be up top. Oh yeah, I did show you, but the cable would have to go all the way around, so that wouldn't work. So that's that. So that's what's going to happen. That's our only option, is to have the caliper back here, have the e-brake cable go around the bottom of the axle. Now we got to put the studs in. So the rotor goes on like that, I hope. No, that's the only way it would actually fit. Then you just drop the studs in, put them all in before you start pounding on them. I believe this is just a front rotor. Looks exactly the same, which is kind of nice. Go to replace them. It's so convenient, they come 10 to a box, the studs. So now, this is where my little studs come in. I'm going to tap a couple so it stays together while I pick it up. If I set 3 of them out. So I just put 3 down. See how good my eyeballing is here. Not very, I can tell already. And then just line them up like that. Then I'll do one over here like that. So then I'll just pound those 3 in. And then I just lift it, turn it one. It should just line up again. It does. Just like that. Okay, like an idiot, I forgot to pan the camera up. So here's what I did. I slid that on there like that. And then I held the caliper up just to make sure that the offset was right, that we didn't put that plate on backwards. We didn't, it's good. It looks like it's gonna be just right. So there are other brackets, and I don't like them, but they probably do have their perks that are flat and they don't have any bends in them. And then you run spacers down below. I personally would prefer this style where it's bent, as long as whoever's bending it is good at bending. But these guys are, the RuffStuff ones are good. Alright, so those are a pain to get started by hand. If you use the tool though, it goes right on. So, as I'm doing this, if you pressed your race out in the back, if you push that out to get to your bearing, then you're going to want to tighten that up quite a bit and spin it. before you back it off so that you pull the races together. Because when you put them back in, once you tighten them up, it wants to suck up to that clip that's on the inside. So if you just set your preload, you know, real nicely, and you don't actually pull that race up, as soon as you drive the thing around for a little while, that bearing's gonna be a little loose. How these ones work is you have to line up the keyway on the shaft, on the axle tube, with the keyway on the adjuster nut. So since I have really light bearing in there, or oil in there, I want to make sure that I don't over preload this thing. If I had grease in there, you know, believe it or not, grease has a thickness and stuff, and you could go a little, you would probably be a little tighter, but there's not going to be any rolling, there shouldn't be any rolling resistance on this thing at all. Because the grease that I have is so light in there, so we don't want to go too heavy on rolling resistance, because grease obviously has a rolling resistance. So anyway, so I'm gonna throw my wrench on there, and just give it a little. See, and it still spins pretty good, but you got to really be careful. But we're gonna do this a few times because I pushed that race out of the inside, so I want to make sure it's sucked up tight. Okay, so now I'm pretty tight, so we're gonna back it off. Ooh, that was pretty good. Is that too tight though? Yeah, I don't like that. That's too tight. So we're gonna go back one. Yeah. Now there's a little key stock that you took out of it. Hopefully you know, or you would have noticed, you never would have got it apart. So you slip that key in, like that, all the way if you can. And then there's just this clip. And this clip, so it doesn't spin, that tab goes down in that keyway. And it's just, so it just clips into the threads. So you just want to get it on the same thread the whole way so you're not crossing threads. Just so that key can come out, and that's all it does. As long as that key can't come out, there's no load on that thing. That's just holding the key in. These pads look like they're the exact same as the other side, and it's going against my theory here of the scraper thing being on the bottom, on the leading edge, because this one is on the trailing edge. So, oops, I don't think it makes a difference. It's going to make noise either way. That's the only thing it does. Okay, now it's the same deal on these. You want to make sure as you're going in that you don't knock your O-ring out right there. The other one won't come out. That one's in that sleeve, as long as the sleeve was in it. And those will pop out during shipping sometimes. But I wish you could see that better. But as it goes in, ooh. Yeah, we'll just do that. It's so retracted that the thing was tight before the thing even went into it. So anyway, you just gotta line it up, and if you have any play at all, usually you can play with a bolt on the back side. That's what's nice about using this. You can kind of guide it that way. That one went right in. So and then they don't pop out. But always watch those on anything you're doing, brakes, especially old brakes. Just watch those things. No, that is right height right there on the front. The back's pretty close too. Really cool. I just yeah, I mean the look of this thing is just sweet. I only have the brakes and stuff done on this side because I didn't actually get it done. I am out of time. It's late. I just had to get the wheels on one side. Okay, well, we'll try that. That's cranked pretty good. I don't know if it's quite all the way. It's all the way in the box, but I extended the arm out a little bit. I still had it all the way at the most collapsed length, which is going to limit us on turning right. So I extended it a little bit. It's probably pretty close to about where we'd want to stop it anyway. It's turning pretty good, so that's not too much of a concern. If we can get that, that's pretty good. We're about square with the back wheel well, or the back frame rail there. So I am worried that it is probably going to hit as we go down, but let's try it right now. The back we know clears. Oh, we still got lots of room. That's just the tire scooting on the ground. We still have lots of room. It's articulating right now because there's no wheel on the other side. So we still have about 1.5 inches or so in the back. Yeah, I think the first thing to hit is going to be my lift. So we still have about 1 inch. So we're actually doing pretty good. And we need to go down. It's tough to say in articulation. If I were to pull that up, maybe another 1.5 inches. I think the rear fender's just, the rear tire just hit because the other side's not articulating all the way. We still have room here. We still have 3/4 of an inch. I don't think it's ever going to get any closer because we're about the biggest part of the tire now. So I think we have success in the front. Once we clear the bumper. Okay, so the last project we wanted to do was put on the steering cylinder. But I got ripped off on the steering cylinder. So the reason he wanted to sell it to me for cheap, I just noticed as I'm trying to, I was trying to find center, that the frickin' rod is like massively bent in it. I don't know if you can see that. So it obviously doesn't move for crap. So I basically bought junk. Don't worry, I know where the guy works. I expected more from him. He seemed like a nice guy, but obviously he saw a sucker, and that's me. So I like to take people for their word. And I got ripped off. So cool. So now we got to get a steering cylinder. So we'll start over. I'm going to see if I can buy it, since I already bought all the parts to complete this. Obviously they took that off so they could replace it with one that wasn't bent. And I was, his story did seem odd, that why would they take it off and replace it if there's nothing wrong with it, and that they only used it for one run and then they replaced it. Well, obviously they did that because they bent it. So whatever. I am going to look into getting another one. So that was a big waste of money. So no matter how cheap you get them, if it's no good, it's a waste of money. It was total waste. So it's just junk. It's going to go in a scrap pile. So anyway, so we're not getting that done. Otherwise, everything else is done. All right, and here's some happy pictures to get us out of that mood. That soured me, and you know, I just did that a minute ago. I went down there and I'm like, oh, we forgot to do the steering cylinder, better go do that real quick, and then that happened. So anyway, got some cool pictures. You know, I was trying to get all artistic with them. I'm not much of an artist when it comes to that type of stuff. I got the budget sheet updated. We're at 172 hours, but I still got about 3 hours to just to get caught up to where I'm saying we're at. So we'll be about 175 hours once I do that. Next week we're going to tackle the bumper, clearancing that bumper, and then we'll play with the steering a little bit more, make sure everything's going to clear. We'll articulate it and stuff a little bit more, and clearance anything else that we need to clearance. I really only think it's going to be the bumper though, so that should be wrap that up. And then I think we're going to try to make, if we can, if I have the parts here, which I have an idea of what we'll be using, but we're going to make a mock-up set of coilovers so that we can use it as a tool to make all our mounts and everything. And so we're gonna build that next week, and then the following week we'll probably actually start making our mounts and stuff for the coilovers and stuff. So anyway, stay safe out there. You know, I know the coronavirus thing. You know, I didn't really take it too seriously at first, and I regret that now. Now that we actually know people that are well, indirectly, I don't know anyone personally yet, but indirectly, we know people that their family and stuff has been dying from it. So that's unfortunate. So and that's terrible. Again, I'm going to throw the media under the bus on that one. You know, if they wouldn't cry wolf all the time and make stories out of things that weren't stories, people would probably take them more seriously, and everyone would have taken this more seriously. So anyway, so stay safe, keep your distance, clean up, and you know, just try to stay safe and slow the spread. We'll see you next week.